here tonight. I really appreciate you being here because I have here with me a couple of my mentors. Yes, my mentors that I'm sharing with you. So, how should I say this gracefully? Because I kind of keep you guys a secret, but sometimes it's just nice to name drop that I know Jimmy Newsom, that I know Zakia Ringold, that I know Doc Williams. Yeah. Sometimes, I got to share that with people. So Zakia, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I was in the middle of sharing you out on Facebook, so I'm sorry for the double feedback that you might have gotten there. But hello, everybody. My name is Zakia Ringold. I am the serial entrepreneur who owns Natural Soap by Zakia, Live Soap School, Virtual Experience Design Agency, and my newest baby of Business Tech Lab. So I help entrepreneurs figure out the tech to turn their dreams into reality.
Okay. Doc, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Hey everybody, well, it's great to have, thank you for having me, first of all, Erica. So it's great to see everyone. My name is Doc Williams, and I help people build operations and scale systems using no-code tools and other things. And some of the things is I just go and try to figure out how I can help other people do businesses better. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be with one of my clients, which is NBA Summer League. So we'll be out in Las Vegas. And then we're going to be doing a couple other things with a couple brands like Opus Clip and others to help businesses learn how to scale and use AI and no code.
All right, thanks. Okay, Jimmy Newsom, let everybody know a little bit about yourself.
Sure, why not? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Erica, for having me on the show. And my name is Jimmy Newsom. I'm the Impact Influencer. Our big juicy vision is to be the #1 strategic support system for small businesses globally. And we want to support 1 million businesses by leveraging innovation, technology, and strategy by 2050. I love this topic, and it's funny, this topic was actually our framework for this month, which allowed us to dive in. So I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because we did a lot around this topic here. And when we relate it to events, the crazy thing is I have a big event we're doing on Thursday, which I'll be referring to today, and looking at it because it actually ended up becoming an MVP product. And so I'm looking forward to sharing why and how that kind of came together. And hopefully that'll give some insights for others as well as we talk about MVPs specifically around leveraging events.
All right. So hopefully you guys got a good sense of why these three are my personal mentors, because they're all got something to do with tech and they're all really good at what they do. So today I want to bring them in to, be nosy and ask them about how they're using minimal viable products and their own personal events, or how they use minimal viable products with their clients. So I got a couple of questions here that I got from the survey you guys filled out when you joined this event. The first one here is how to design a multiple viable product for prototyping and testing. You guys ever heard of anything like this? Have you done anything like this?
Yes. This is, and again, this is like, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because we went over this. So when we talk about prototyping or testing MVP, minimal viable product, what we had discussed was either around a product or a service. And those would be two different ways you can look at it. For a product, it could be as easy as or as simple as using these printers that are now can literally print out 3D type of images or pieces to help you put together a prototype that way. If it's a software type of scenario, like a mobile app or something, you might use a software like React or Flutter to help you create a prototype that you can then start to test and get real user feedback. If it is a service-based thing, then I would suggest, what we ended up focusing on in our training this month, we use what is known as the Moscow method, not the country, but Moscow stands for must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-have. And that makes up the word Moscow. And this is how you start to basically prototype a service, especially from an MVP standpoint, meaning what is the minimal things that what are the minimal core features that need to exist in this product or this service in order for you to launch, and then what should also be included, and then what could be included, which is that third tier, and then what won't be included, meaning it can be included much later on, but right now it's not necessary for this product to for us to at least get this thing out the door. So that's how I would look at prototyping for an MVP, whether it is a product-based or service-based, and sometimes a software product can kind of straddle between the two.
All right. Doc or Zakia, you guys want to get on this question? How to design MVPs
Let's
for
do it.
prototyping and testing?
Yeah, so I love it. Jimmy was exactly right there. So if you're going to be doing something like that, I'm very basic. I'm just like, okay, so what's the goal? Am I trying to make money at a certain point? Am I trying to get to a certain point to validate, to make either money from a VC? What's my goal? So if I'm looking at, I want to get this many customers, okay, let's talk about it. If I'm saying I want to make this much money, okay, let's validate and see if people will even have the willingness and ability to pay you before you even prototype, because tons of people will go and spend hours, hundreds of hours, hundreds of thousands of dollars to prototype something or pay an agency. But then they're like, I think this is a great idea. I'm like, but you didn't ask anyone if they're really going to give you money. So then we get through this loop and everything like that. So I think it's really important to set up those expectations, test it. And if people aren't ready to pay you, pivot, explain it a little bit differently, see what's going on. And then that allows you to scale very, very quickly with a prototype.
All right. Zakia, before I ask you, I heard something from Jimmy and I heard something from Doc, and I got to know, is minimal viable product your goal? Is that the same thing?
Probably, depending on what stage you are in business, right? So maybe you've done it several times. There's been several iterations, so it's no longer a minimal viable product. You know that it works. It's meeting the needs of your customers. I'm an accidental MVP person. I found out about it because I said yes to some things before I actually had the product, and I had to work into it, right? So then that whole perfectionism thing started to come in, and you're like, well, how am I actually going to deliver? And of course, you want to do all the bells and whistles, but again, what's that minimal thing that's still going to get you to the goal? Where's that value for your customers, right? So I can harken back to what Doc and Jimmy said. So I knew that people were willing to pay for it because they paid me before it was built, right? So that was how I was like, okay, but then I had to deliver on what that minimal viable product was. So I was an accidental MVP person. I am in Jimmy's Moving Forward Small Business and got some amazing strategies for implementing the minimal viable product, but I was accidentally creating MVPs because I had 4 different projects with very limited time to deliver on those products. So that's how I stumbled into the world of MVP.
All right. I was hanging out with Jimmy and Moving Forward Small Business, and I was talking to him about the value ladder and MVPs. And I said something about doing something for free. He's like, no, they got to pay for it. And it automatically made me think about Doc always telling me that they got to pay for something. And Doc, I'm sorry, I don't know why I always let that go, but yeah, I'm holding on to it now. I'm gonna write it on my my desktop. My phone says make more offers this year, so I gotta really hold on to that. Okay, my next question is making sure that it aligns with my core message. I kind of feel like you guys all talked about that already.
Well,
Do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, we can definitely dive deeper into it. When we talk about aligning with the core message, this goes back to what Doc even said, is unless you understand what the end goal is, you're already wasting your time, and I think we tend to miss that, and so I'll kind of dive into, so Thursday we're doing an event, so I'll focus a little bit on the event. And this event, is a simpler version of this big goal that I've been trying to do with 10 cities. And I've been trying to plan this 10 city tour for 2 years, and it's a lot of work. And the problem is not, and I don't want to say this in the wrong way, the problem's not me. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. It's the fact that I have to rely on people outside of me, meaning that I have to talk to partners and sponsors, and then they tell me things that they might do or they will do, and then they don't deliver. And I do everything under my power to deliver to them, and I still end up on the short side of the process. And so I had to sit back and tell myself, what are we trying to do here? We want to get this thing funded, and we want to be able to be in front of our target audience, and we want to be able to make this huge impact. And it finally hit me, and it wasn't until last month. I'm like, just do one, and sometimes you can feel like it's not what I want, but at the end of the day, it's probably the best thing you could do. And it gives you a chance to just perfect that one little piece, which is the MVP, and do it in a way that you know what the big picture is. So when I was able to take this one small piece to a new potential partner, as far as an event company, an event that's already playing, I actually got more than I was trying to get from the people trying to do the 10 cities. And it actually changed the whole process of how I'm going to move forward from here, because they saw the true value in it and gave me a lot more. And it also gave me time to sit back and perfect it a little bit more, think about it more, ask questions, rebuild the structure. And it was extremely exciting. But the thing is, I knew it's still, everything I'm doing here is still going to build onto what I'm doing to align to the bigger picture down the line. So I know everything that we do here is going to benefit that big picture. And it's actually going to be a better scenario, because now I'm also going to have a working prototype.
Yeah, that really makes sense.
So we're talking about it's making sure it aligns with the brand, right?
That's right.
MVP. So it really depends what kind of brand, if it's going to be a personal brand, whatever you want to do, I think. And if I'm going to make sure it aligns with the brand, I would say number one, if it's a personal brand, does it really speak to me and my nature? It could make you a lot of money, but does it now at a cost that now that changes or taints the brand? And then also too, is it just an expansion? We call this like the WWE model. So basically we try to think about road shows of like, what's the smallest show we could possibly do? Okay. All right. That's one. What is a tentpole event? Where's that pay-per-view event? And then what's that annual event? What's SummerSlam or anything like that? So we try to make sure that it aligns with whatever we're trying to do for the MVP, and then go from there. An example of that, we're working with the NBA. They're doing Summer League. They then expanded on to NBA Con. So that was to express more. It was going to be a conference to help people of all different backgrounds, sneakerheads, different ones that love the NBA, do all those things. That was their MVP last year with NBA Con. Then it became NBA Experiences, because guess what? As much as they wanted a conference and have that, most people had a very different vision of what they wanted to do when they were in Vegas with the NBA. So that became Experiences, where it was smaller events where they could be with their players. So even bigger brands are still trying to figure it out. They're still launching things and thinking, or have a concept what they think the public wants, and then they're going to have to pivot. But I think aligning with what your core audience wants of you, what do you want of your brand, going from there, you'll have success if you have that as a North Star.
All right. Nosy question now. Asking your core audience what they want. I've always heard you need to ask them. How do you get them to reply?
Relationships. It's it all depends on the platform you're using to communicate with them. It's of course you have surveys. You also have tools out there that can read your data. I had a conversation early this week with a SaaS company, amazing company that can take your Google Analytics and leverage AI to tell you a lot about that audience. And then we have another tool, and that tool is called delve.ai. And then we have another tool called Idea8, which can, based on either your product or your service or what you think might be your target audience, you can put these 2 or 3 elements into this tool, and it can give you the sentiments around these tools, which a lot of AI tools can't do. And so if you don't have the ability to communicate directly with your target audience, then the other aspect is to build the sentiment around the product or service, and then get a consensus of what people are thinking about, or what they're in pain with, what type of problems they're trying to solve. So then you can get a little bit closer to understanding what those points are. Again, if you can't get direct access to the members, but if you know me, and both a few of you do, I'm even in the middle of my trainings, I'm asking you, does that work? Do you like it? Can I help? Can I do something different? It's constantly setting up that feedback loop, and any and everywhere you can get it set up. I think customer service is probably the most important thing you can do once you have a customer, is you take care of that person so much that they do not want to leave you. And we can't always do it for everyone. But at the end of the day, if we can focus on it as much as we can, and then of course, try to do it at scale.
That makes sense.
I could
Zakia?
also add on that my events are a little bit different because I'm embedded in those communities. I'm actually a subject matter expert in those areas. I'm embedded in the communities where they're asking the questions. So we're delivering an experience based on being an expert in that space. So I think it becomes easier if you are building around what you see as a need in the industry. So we're doing handcrafted live, right? So that one is specifically for soap makers, and I'm a soap maker. So there's the product making side, but then there's the how do I grow my business side. Everybody knows how to make the products, but then they also need that community aspect. They also need to be able to interact with those suppliers. So understanding what those needs are and going back to the value, understanding what's going to be important. So getting people to sign up isn't so much of a heavy lift if you're meeting those or getting them to give you answers into, okay, I want to see this session, or I want to see this particular sponsor, because then it becomes much easier for you to make the sell, because you're not pulling at straws looking for data somewhere else. You're embedded in that community and know those needs.
That makes sense. I recently had a conversation with one of the Virtual Summiteers peer group members, and they told me that even though they've been a part of the group for about maybe 3 years now, they didn't understand everything that was going on. And I told them I was shocked and surprised, and that my feelings was hurt because they've been with us so long. And when Doc, Jimmy, and now you, Zakia, just all said that check in with your community and ask them questions, I'm thinking, I maybe have not been doing that well enough. So that's something I need to write down and make sure that I do. I didn't know that customer service, I should say I should, because customer service is so big, but now I know that is a minimal viable product that everyone wants. Okay, so our next question is, share an example of validating interest in an event even before produced. Validate the needs so you can validate the needs of your target audience and maximize the possibility of the event succeeding when launched, like a good registration or attendance rate. Anybody want to take that first?
I can share because I'm right on the heels of doing this right now. So our handcrafted live site doesn't go live until Saturday. We have the pre-registration site open. We are now at 400 registrations, pre-registrations. They haven't even seen the schedule. They haven't seen who's speaking. They don't even know the outline, but it's the reputation of what it is that we've done previously that's fueling that. So I think having pre-registrations before you even start building out, because then you can tie an email sequence to that. hey, we're building this out, would love to know what you would want to see. Or, hey, do you want to be a speaker at this particular event? Do you know sponsors that we should be reaching out to? So all of that is now happening for those people who have pre-registered for the event, helping me to see, yep, check, check, check. Oh, wait a minute, there's a miss right here. There's one particular topic that surprised the heck out of me that people still want to know that. I thought it was really basic, but then sometimes you're not as tuned in as you thought you were.
And can you ask the question again? I thought I had overlapping questions. My brain was like ping ping ping.
No worries. It says, share an example of validating interest in an event even before we produce it. Validate the needs
Gotcha.
of
I'm
our
good
target.
there. I can go from there. And this sometimes part. So I'll take a different approach. I have a partnership with the New York Public Library, and I do it for free. And a lot of people thought I was out of my mind, but that's not my goal, is to get paid in that situation. My goal in a situation like that is we now have a captive audience, their audience, and the library trusts me so much that I can literally do anything I want, and of course I would never disrespect that opportunity and that leadway. But what I realize I have the ability to do is test things. So a lot of my best programs were actually done with people from that show up to the library for business related courses. So every time I can have the wildest idea on the planet, I will take it there first, because I already have the ear of the partner, the organization, but I already have built up a relationship and a reputation within the people that actually show up to these events. So when I have them there for an event, I'll actually start to seed a new event and get their response and get their feedback on if they would like to see this, and whether it is an add-on to an existing product or service, but we'll call it an event, or is, I'm thinking about this new topic, and on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you guys think as, these 3 topics, and I do that a lot as well with partners when I get booked to speak a lot. I did it probably 3 times this week for different events in different parts of the country and around the world. And they'll go, we have some spaces open. And so I'll give them topics for each section and go, you pick. And I'm going based on the audience that we're going to show up. And then I customize it after the fact. Let's have a follow-up call and let's talk a little bit more about the audience, because the audience is always the most important aspect of anything, product, service, event. And then from that standpoint, I grill them like crazy to tell me as much as humanly possible about the audience. All the other stuff I can get from my research tools and other things like that. But the audience is specific to the fact that, okay, this is your 5th year doing this. This is your 1st year doing this. This is your 12th year doing this. What can you share with me about the makeup of this audience?
Ericka, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm thinking that okay, so I know Jimmy, Daniel Priestley of Dent and Key Person of Interest. He's always talking about having like a waiting list. And last Friday I talked to Harry the Big Dog Jamerson, shout out to DJ Interviews. He talked about having what was it called? Eventbrite. And right after I talked to him, I talked to you about using Eventbrite. So I got this bright idea about using Eventbrite as my waiting list, saying, hey, I got this idea for an event. If 50 or more people are interested, let me know and I will host this event on this time or whatever. Like maybe give it a month of a waiting list. And I'm thinking, is that possible? Is that what you were just talking about? Because that's how you use the library to see if people are interested to host your next event. Is that close to the same thing?
I mean, if I got 45 people sign up, I'm still going to do the event. So it's I guess it's more or less just, these people come to me all the time. They show up at my events all the time. So I have almost like an invested interest in them and they in me. So I can trust that they do want to know more about this particular topic or something. So I can have more of an honest conversation, because it's like they have to take time out of these are live events. So they have to take time out of their schedule to actually show up, you know. So that's one way. You can still do the other way. There's no wrong way to do to validate an idea. It's just how many ways do you want to try? You know, so if that's the way you want to try, because I would consider that maybe a cold audience, unless you're sending that to, you know, I wouldn't go that far if I was sending it to a warm or hot audience, because a warm and a hot audience, to me, I would assume is already on my mailing list or in my community. So I would just get the feedback right there. You know, I would think maybe that's probably more of a cold audience, and you're sending cold traffic there to see if there's interest, because you're targeting them differently. They've shown some interest in this topic, or they're in this specific industry that might be valuable to this particular. So, but again, I'm just talking hypotheticals here. You know, you just have to determine, you know, what methodologies am I going to use to validate this potential idea, and what do I already have access to that I can do so.
Okay. Doc, you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I love it. I love the conversation. I think those are all great points. I just think about two things. Number one, really basic. And I think about when I didn't have an audience and just starting out. And the biggest thing was when I didn't have an audience, I had to, in a very nice way, borrow one or get in front of one without, or just exchange, right? So if when I first started, I didn't have an audience. So what did I have to do? I had to exchange something to get in front of their audience, or bring something of value so I could be in front of their audience and be on their stage. So starting out there, I would make sure that I wrote a list of 5 to 10 people why I would collaborate, and I wouldn't just hit them up and say, hey, I'd love to collaborate. I stalk them, tell them why I love them, what I did, what I signed up for them, and then explain why we should do something together. And that's how I did for digital events. For live events, I would buy a ticket to the event. I would stay at the hotel. And if I found a corner of the hotel, if I did something, I would say, I'm doing a fireside chat. And I would just camp out there and sell tickets online to the event, because I already knew who was going to be at the event. I already knew where they were going to stay. So I'm like, I'm actually here too. Show up at the bar, I'll buy you a drink, and I'm over here. So that's every single time I would go. And working with the NBA, it's not because I'm blessed or something like that. I snuck into the stadium, did a documentary for 9 months, and then showed it to them. And that's how I worked with them. So I just think about looking at where you're starting from, how you can get in front of them, how can you be impressive? And then again, it comes back to money or attention. What is it worth to you? If I'm going to throw an event, what's your time and energy worth? Will people book and pay 50 cents, $1? What is it? Or if it's, you know, I'm trying to get 50 people, can there be a tier level? Once we get the first 10, then there's a small celebration. When we hit the first 25, it's another celebration. Those kind of things. And there's a book called Be Our Guest. It's talking about perfecting the art of customer service. It's how they built Disneyland. And that really breaks down all the different ways how they thought about the concepts of the rides, the parks. And I still use a lot of those concepts to this day.
Wow. Yeah, when you tell that story, I've heard that story before, but I'm always like, wow, Doc is so stealth, so brave and fearless, because I'll totally be scared to do all of those things.
No. I was broke, and my wife said if I didn't get the deal, there was going to be consequences. So I flew out to Vegas, and she's like, you're not spending more than X amount. And I was like, I'm coming home with the deal. So it was out of fear and trepidation of my wife that we got that done.
Well, shout out to Sabrina Williams. You know, she could be a really great coach, because I feel like whenever Sabrina says do something, you got to do it like right there and then, or else she'll know and be very disappointed in you.
Oh yeah, amen to that.
All right. Okay. So now I have we finished our questions from our survey. So we're asking questions now from don't let the Jason Hodge know this, but I totally asked chat to give me some questions. Jason always says I need to use my own voice, and I can't do that sometimes, but I tweaked it. you can tell me if you can tell if I tweaked it. Okay, so what is a minimal viable product and how does it apply to the event industry? So I feel like we've already gone over it, but if you could give like one little tip of how you've used a minimal viable product lately. Anybody?
Well, MVP, minimal viable product, is what is the minimal thing I can do to make this product viable enough to sell? You know, so and you know, I'm guilty of it. You know, we come up with these great new ideas and we want to add everything under the sun we could think about. And then that
That's true.
holds up the process, you know, and we have to be able to, you know, take a step back and go, you know, how do I determine what is the most important things? And sometimes if you're not the target audience, you now have to figure out from whose perspective is this going to be the minimal viable thing that somebody's willing to pay. So you asked for an example. So we just launched a press release service. And I have all these grand ideas, but then I scaled it all the way back to its simplest form, just the press release and a bit of exposure on that. And then the only add-on is you get additional exposure to that there. It's enough to make to get the job done, and there's still room for it to grow, to either whether it becomes an expandable service or it becomes a service that can be put into another product to increase more value, you know. But it's a very low dollar value product, and where it would have taken me a month to create a massive product, I was able to do that in days, get it live and start making sales on it.
Okay, let me be nosy really quick. What made you say, hey, this product is small, but still useful to this target audience?
And that's because of my experience, you know,
Okay.
Being a content marketer, being an SEO guy, you know, and understanding press releases. And I forget how I stumbled on it. It was definitely something I was doing. So it's whenever I create something, it's already because something else is already in motion. I don't create anything out of the air, because if it came out of the air, it's not aligned with anything. So it has to be aligned with something that I'm in a direction I'm already headed in. If I'm driving a car at 100 miles an hour, I am not trying to go two lanes over. I'm trying to stay in that lane and grab things on the way that continue to build that momentum for me. So it was something I was doing, but I can't remember what. But at the end of the day, I wanted to generate another source of revenue, but I also didn't want to add necessarily more stuff to my plate. And I know what it was. I was actually going to do a press release as well. And through my research and process of figuring out what platform and tool to use, I ended up realizing that if I put it together myself and I subsidized some of the things that the company that was going to do my press release, I could do internally, I could actually beat that price and then make it a service. You're muted, young lady.
Dang it. I'm hovering over the mute button with my mouse, and I'm still talking to you like you can hear me, but yet my daughter's in the other room singing very loudly. Okay, so I'm wondering, can I change the words of a minimal viable product to small useful product? Would that I'm wondering if that would help more people. Would that mean the same thing if I changed those words around?
I don't
No,
No.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
I tried.
Cute.
It has to be value. Like you're trying, and going back to what Jimmy was saying, you're attempting to get it viable for the end consumer, not for you, the creator, right? That was a challenge that I've had, right? Where it was, oh, well, I want it to do all these things, but they only need this particular thing. Is it viable in the market? Are you going to be able to sell it? If you're just saying useful, a spoon is useful, but I'm not going to create more spoons just because it's the thing. It's something that's meeting the need of those customers for viability.
Yeah, I understand better now. I'm not going to ask you guys the same questions. I'm going to ask different questions. Jimmy, you guys sit this one out because you answered the last one. But Doc, Zakia, just jump in if you want to answer this question. How do you determine what features or aspects to include in a minimal viable product for an event-related project? Anybody?
I can answer both of those, or I can answer it from two different events. So there's an in-person event that we do, and it's for high school students to teach them how to make soap, but then how to leverage tech, right? So initially it was, they only wanted to make the product. So I thought, so I went there with that. But then as we started introducing podcast and video creation, we knew that we had room to grow to add those additional elements on. So it was, what is that end goal of what you're trying to do? That's your minimal, but then you constantly have something to build on that. For Handcrafted Live, here's another great example. Well, Jimmy, you didn't ask Jimmy to answer this question, and I'm going to pull him in on this one. So I was throwing everything I could at this thing. We have awards, we have this, we have that. And then he said, well, wait a minute. He reminded me, minimal viable product. So we took one element out of there because then we can add it later on to continue to give legs to the event long after the event is over. So it really depends on knowing what is that ultimate thing that you want to achieve, and then adding elements to it that make sense, that are going to get you closer to that, not just nice bells and whistles because we can.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Jason has a great comment in there too, if you want to grab that.
Yeah, he says, and minimal is not necessarily referring the size. It's the fastest path to the desired result that takes the least amount of effort and resources to test if you are on the right track before green light going further. Yeah.
And that's 100%. I mean, you couldn't have been more correct, Jason. I mean, again, it's definitely not about size. It's about how fast can we get to market.
Okay, Doc. I have one for you. You've already answered this, but I'm wondering if you could just add a little bit more. It says, what strategies do you employ to gather feedback from clients or attendees when testing a minimal viable product? So what I want to add to this is, like you said, you're going to Vegas, you're going to hang out with the NBA, and so many of their clients or customers wants to do so many things with them. How do you decide? How do you pick out what you're gonna do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, okay, so there's two things. Yes, they can vote with their wallet and what they want to do. But the thing is, I do trust a lot of people what they say, but I don't really trust a lot of people. I trust their actions. So a lot of times we'll be like, yeah, that would be great. That's a great event. You should have that. And then you throw the event and then no one shows up, or they don't do what you ask them to do. So usually we're trying to frame it with, Jimmy mentioned analytics and everything like that. We're looking at behavior patterns. We're looking at what's going on, or we frame it a little bit differently. So for example, if there's a new event happening, we ask them to rate it. So to say 0 to 10, how excited are you for this? But then we'll say, okay, based on that, and if they hit like 9 or 10, we're like, great. We do an instant, hey, it's this amount. And then we quantify how many people leave that page after we put a certain price, right? So they're saying they value it at this much. We're saying, put your money where your mouth is. And they're like, actually, I don't really care about that much, right? So we're constantly testing what people are doing, the different interactions and everything like that. And bottom line, it's a mixture of behavior patterns and then following up. And this is really important, following up in a way that is not interrogating, to find out like, well, okay, so what could we do better? Or what could we do in an alternative? Because if you do the knee jerk of like, oh, why wouldn't you pay this much? They'll give generic answers, or they won't be able to really articulate maybe what they'll say. They'll just, like, if it's multiple choice, they'll be like, oh, it's this and this, but it's not really diving deep. If you do it more of a storyboard or a story mode of like, you know what, I felt the same way, or, we're hearing a lot of this. This is what they're trying to do instead, or this is how they're feeling. when you do it in story mode, people are like, yes, that's me. And this is what's going on. My family's too big, trying to go over there. So you're really trying to get them to tell a story. And then that allows you to be more empathetic when you now present it again. So an example of this is there was a lot of people that were saying that they wanted to sit courtside to see some of the stars. And you'd be like, great, here's how much the tickets were. And they would be like, oh, that's too expensive. But really, that's not what they wanted. They wanted booths and they wanted to be more intimate and be off where they could have food and have their family relax and everything, right? But they didn't say that. They just said it was too expensive. They didn't want to sit courtside. But then they spent more on the booth with all their family. So, you know, that's the whole thing of finding out what their pain point is, hearing their conversation, and then pivoting from there. And with the events, sometimes we thought like the event would look like X, Y, and Z, would look a certain way, but then it ended up being a totally different thing. Like, for example, a lot of people are like, oh, they want to be by the NBA stars, but actually not really. They just want to, they have other prerogatives. So a lot of people are like, I want to meet the NBA stars. What they really mean is, I want to know who can I talk to in the front office so I could get a job for that team. That's totally different, right? And so now we have to have a totally different behavior. So that's actually how they develop sports business classroom. That's what happens at NBA Summer League. It's an entire immersive program where you learn how you get hired for the front office of the NBA. But what people kept saying was, I want to meet LeBron. I want to meet Bronny. I want to meet all the, they didn't really actually mean that. They just said they wanted something totally different. And so that's how products change and everything. In sports business classroom, it runs from, some of the packages are 3,000 up to 10,000, right? But then they were the same people that said they wouldn't pay courtside for a couple hundred. So it's just, that's a long-winded question or answer, and I'll stop.
No worries, because now I have nosy questions. How are you finding out what they really want? Because they say one thing, but they do another. Are you following the money? Are you, is there some kind of analytics you can check out?
Yeah, so half we're using ad roll and we're just doing retargeting ads and doing a lot of A/B testing on what they're doing. And then what we do also too is really very personal, like non-salesy way. So like we'll do emails that will be like, was it something I said? Or something that looks like non-capitals, looking like it's from a friend. And then we'll just have a conversation. The more we can make it look like a text, the better. And then we'll do really, really low budget videos of me either walking or just saying like, hey, you know, Tom, I was thinking about you, you know, this X, Y, and Z. And the more natural it looks, the less production, we have the highest return or conversion based off of that. So we find that out. And then we're like, hey, we'd love to jump on a call or something like that. And then when they jump on the call with their consent, we record everything, because then we're looking for how they say things, the phrases, and then we just use that for copy later on in other marketing.
Okay, sounds smart. I have one last question for all of you. All of you, please take part in this last question. What advice would you give to another event professional who I can't say it now, who are considering using a minimal viable product in their business for the first time?
Zakia's first.
So what I would say is maybe approach it as you're always using a minimal viable product. You can always iterate, you can always grow. If you are somebody who is stumbling with actually launching, maybe consider dialing back to what could be your minimal viable product. I think every product that I have produced, whether it be an event, a course, a solution, any of them, they have always been, I didn't know it at the time, they've always been a minimal viable product, because that leaves room for you to grow, because you can't grow in a vacuum if you haven't tested it in the market. So you think, I got to build all these things. And if you're spending all that time building all of those things, you never get a chance to know what your customers really need. So maybe shift your mindset to everything's a minimal viable product. Because here's the way I psych myself up about that. Yeah, I didn't put my all into it. So if it flops, guess what? I knew that was going to happen, right? Because I didn't give it my all. So maybe that's a cushion as well.
Love it. I'll go next. I love that, Zakia. I actually, I'll give it more as as a framework, 5-part framework. And so I'll say first, make sure you can clearly define the value proposition of the event, the product, or the service. So we start, and again, this is my personal opinion, start there because we need a product. Now that we know we have a product, and again, that could be a spin-off or a simplified version of an existing product that you have, where I would think about, when I look at the PR, the press release service, to me, that's part of a bigger PR campaign. I did a webinar with the television producer and and again, now I realize I'm starting to remember a little bit of a television TV news producer and a radio host here in New York. And they wanted me to partner with them on a whole PR service. That was part of the reason why I created the thing, because it's very expensive what they're offering. It's very valuable, but a lot of my target audience wouldn't be able to afford that. They would need to build up to get to that point. So I created the press release service as a simple way to get people to start to value press, to value PR, leverage it, get some easy wins, and then go, is it worth an investment to go to that next level? So value proposition, then conduct your market research to understand the position and the pain points of your target audience. Whether you're using a tool like Delve that can read your Google Analytics and give you predictability about who the people are, what they're struggling with, and then investigate the competitors to understand the gap that your MVP can fill. Okay, using the wrong competitors will give you the wrong answer. So we always have to make sure we're using the right competitors to leverage what is the gap that your MVP can fill. When I look at the press release, the two biggest companies are Citizen and I think maybe Meltwater. And the sentiment around them for small businesses is they're way too expensive. We can't take advantage of that. So I know that I have that data. So that becomes part of I fill the gap of we're cheaper than them, but we still bring a lot of value. So you're still going to get a lot of value. You're not going to get all the value for the price you're spending, but you're going to get a lot of great value because we can add other things to that. After that, you're going to leverage some type of framework. And I talked about the Moscow framework. That's how you can kind of take all that data that you've collected, put it into the Moscow framework. We have an easy prompt that we do in our AI generative tool that says, based on this service, create a Moscow method around this service. And I can either reference a page that I've already built or just let it understand that this is a new service, and it'll give me that must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and nice-to-haves, or not right now. And so it could do a lot of that lifting for you. And then the final thing is to craft a story that resonates. After you have all this stuff, put it into a story format. And I think Doc talked about storytelling, and push it out. And I know that there's quite a bit, but those are the 5 points I would do as a framework to get your first or your next MVP out the door.
All right, nice. Doc, what you got?
Yeah, once again, if I overthink something, I just get tired and I want to take a nap, or I just go overwhelmed and I'll never do it. I just don't feel like doing it with the event. So for me, I try to keep it as simple as possible. I think about why do I want to have the event in the first place? Who would attend? Why would they actually want to attend? Would I attend it myself? And what is it worth? Is it worth my time? Is it worth their money? What is it worth? And if I can answer those things and I feel motivated and I'm ready to go, my goal is, if it's my first event, all I want is 2 people. I want myself and 1 other person. I just want 2 people. And if they find someone, I'm just going to ask them, hey, if they think this is worthwhile or they think this is something that they want to attend, please just consider just bringing someone else and just CC me in an email. I keep a real low budget. I keep it low budget because I'm not paying for a CRM. No. And then from there, the event, I'm going to keep it on Zoom. That way I can record it, chop it up for later, splice the audio, do all those kind of things. I'm going to have a celebration at the end. I just had my first event. This was a big accomplishment. And guess what? Now I'm going to ask the people that attended, what should I do next? How much should they pay? And then go from there.
Yeah, it's true. Doc, not to call you out, but what Doc just said, it really works. Doc helped me with my second event, which was on Zoom. He told me to pick subject. I picked pricing graphic design. He asked who would attend. I said graphic designers. He said, where would you find these graphic designers? And I'm like, LinkedIn. He's like, how are you going to reach out to them? Like, I'm going to go to the search bar and then find my first connections. And then he says, are you going to reach out to them? I said, yes. He's like, how many are you going to reach out to a day? And I was like, 25. And he's like, okay, do it. Get it done. I came back and was like, this many people said that they're interested. He's like, great. He's like, set up the event page now. I did that, came back. He says, now you have the date and time? I said, yes. He's like, now, how much are you charging? I'm like, charging? All of a sudden I got scared. I think I said, I thought it was free. He's like, at least $50. So shout out to Thomas Ballard, who gave me my first $50 for my event. So to tell you what Doctor said, it works. You just got to do it. So that was our last question of the day. So Zakia, Ringold, please tell everybody where they can find you on social media so they can hang out with you later.
LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. You can type in Zakia Ringold. For those of you that are here, I am doing a monthly giveaway for Handcrafted Live. I will put a link in the chat for all of you. Please do participate in that. It helps us to grow our new pages and all of that. But yeah, LinkedIn, search for my name, Zakia Ringold, and I am happy to connect, talk business tech, talk events, talk soap, whatever it is, I am there.
Okay, so if you guys are watching this via the live stream, you can't see this link, but I will put that link in all the other places later. Jimmy, where can people find you on social media?
LinkedIn is my jam, period. I'm on all these other platforms, but couldn't care less about them. Love my LinkedIn. So that's the spot. And I think not sure, I guess you'll do later the giveaway stuff, Ericka, so I don't have to mention that right now.
Yes, if you want to mention it, it's cool. Jimmy is offering very nice giveaways. If you want to mention it, feel free.
Yeah, so I'm giving away, for anybody who may not know, we have two programs that are independent programs of our online community, which is the Business Plan Bootcamp and the Traffic Max program, leveraging AI and content marketing to get to 1 million visitors in 12 months. So I'm giving away one of each of those to anyone here. And I also just put in the chat, if anyone who is not a member, if you want to try 1 month of our membership, you use code MyMVP and you can get the first month for $10 to try it out. Okay. So
spoiler alert, you're going to want more than 1 month. Yeah, it's true.
And the key is you got to be there. I mean, the crust of it is really about the frameworks we do every month. We have trainings and stuff, but you know, if you're able to attend monthly, and I do have a few members here, it does give you, you know, we go deep. If you can tell. So I realize that when we're talking strategy, we're talking high level, there's a lot of layers under that, and you can't just get through it with a 1-hour webinar.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Doc, let everybody know what's your favorite social media hangout spot. Where can they find you?
I feel like I'm the odd man out here. I might be the only one still using Twitter, but Twitter is the fastest way, but YouTube is really where I'm going to be at. So if you do at Doc Williams, you'll find me. I'll answer anything that you have questions on. And also, too, I'll be at different events later this year. And then we'll be at Summer League in July. So we'll be all around. We'll be in Vegas. Then we'll be, I don't know, we'll be in Nebraska and then Boise. Oh, we're going to the Convert Kit thing. So just hit me up on YouTube and we'll see you around.
All right. You have anything that you want us to do, like right after this? You want us to go to your YouTube channel or follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay. So if you want to, see me on YouTube, subscribe, do all those kind of things, or just say hello. You don't have to subscribe. And on Twitter, if anyone wants to see me over there, I'll put it there, _Doc Williams. Just come and say hey. If you have any questions, I'll be around.
All right. So I'm Ericka Bates. I am the host of the Virtual Summiteers Peer Group. You can find me on LinkedIn. And if you want to see more brilliant people like on this panel, because what's that saying? You're the average of the people you're around the most. Can you tell that I hang out with brilliant people? So yay for me. I really feel privileged that I know all of these people here, even the people in the studio audience. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. Just, it's like, wow, that I get to know you guys. But if you guys in the the live stream, if you're watching on the live stream and you want to hang out with people like this, you got to join the Virtual Summiteers Peer Group. And with that, I'm going to cut off the live stream so we can hang out with the people in our live studio audience. So everybody